For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, and we are live this Friday, March 31st, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday. How can I prove that we are live on this glorious day? Well, because the world is still reacting to the announcement of the Donald Trump indictment. So there you go. That's how I can prove we are not pre-taped. This was not taped in February. This was not taped in January. It was just announced on Thursday, I guess late in the afternoon, maybe early evening, depending on your time zone, that Donald Trump is expected to be indicted or arraigned. Whatever. I don't understand the whole court thing. But on Tuesday is what they're saying, right? Depending on Tuesday, I think, is what they're saying. So we have got, it's been one hell of a week. Lots of big stories in the news. Of course, the tragedy of the mass shooting in Nashville with those, the 6 folks that were killed. As a Canadian, I once again have thoughts on American guns. So I will express my... Here's the thing. It's a favorable opinion with fellow Canadians. Americans don't tend to care to hear the opinion of outsiders. And then especially because it's about guns and not favorable towards guns, then I'm even less heard. You know what I'm saying? So that, and then if we have time about the Wall Street Journal reporter who was detained, right, on espionage charges. And I guess that was also Thursday morning we heard about that. So yeah, it's just been a crazy week. We're going to be talking about all of those stories for the next 30 minutes right here on The Scribble. Time-wasting fun, of course. And it all starts right after this.
This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. No offense, but are you a little fat when you look in the mirror? How would you like to learn the secret to losing 3 to 5 pounds a week without joining the gym or going through any crazy diets? It's called Body Sculpt RX. For the last 2 decades, we've helped countless people lose thousands of pounds. And now, it's your turn. Learn how to lose weight with one simple phone call and no prescription needed. You'll see an amazing difference in a matter of days. Don't believe us? We'll offer you a risk-free money-back guarantee. So, if you're ready to start losing weight, call right now and get a free month supply with your first order of Body Sculpt RX. Call now. You have nothing to lose but the pounds. 800-459-6838. 800-459-6838. 800-459-6838. That's 800-459-6838.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. I have to tell you that I mentioned at the top we are live on this Friday, and it's very rare, by the way, that I work on Fridays. So it's sort of strange that we decided to always release a new podcast on Fridays, because when it, as the term is, drops, when the episode drops, I'm generally still sleeping. So that's again, full disclosure that we are not normally here on a Friday morning. But obviously this week we are, because as an entertainment reporter and correspondent, it's also my job to talk about what the celebrities are discussing and buzzing about on social media. And so, as you can imagine, this Donald Trump story was quite big. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But earlier in the week, the tragic mass shooting, the 100, I think they said it was the 130th in the country in under 90 days. So, doing the math on that, that's, more than one a day, basically. And I'm interested to see, it's called the gun, what is it called? The Gun Violence Archive or something. If you type in U.S. mass shooting, it's one of the first matches. And so I go to it every once in a while, again, just sort of out of curiosity to see. I wanted to know, does it happen every day? We all know it happens a lot, but this website shows you, the date, the location, how many people were affected, and then it'll link you to the news stories from that area, from that city or whatever. And so I was curious about that because you always see on the news that, we've had 60 something this year and then 100 and then 130. And so I was kind of like, well, obviously looking at the numbers, that means that it's more than one a day. So I wanted to see, and there are, maybe 2-day stretches, maybe 3 days in a row where there isn't one. But for the majority, there's at least one, every other day, let's say. And so the Nashville one, I mean, it was fairly sort of early in the day. And I guess for a lot of people who are, working at offices or whatever, you'll get, the news alert on your phone if you've got those kinds of apps. For us, in a media, we're a broadcast outlet. We do print and broadcast, publishing and broadcast. We generally have a news channel on anyway. So we see things, as it's happening because there's TVs on in, different rooms. So, again, this is one of the situations where we go through the same cycle, right? Oh, it's got to change. Oh, it's the gun laws. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's mental health. And so, I'm a newspaper columnist. I have been for, 19 and a half years, almost 20 years. I don't even know how many times I've written about basically Americans and guns. My columns are in Canadian newspapers, and one of the locations is very close to the U.S. border in Canada. It's actually in my home province, and it's literally at the border, I guess you would say. So it's a newspaper that's picked up by Americans as well because they, if they're coming over into Canada, or it's Canadians, So I basically said, like, it's American culture is what it is. And you're going to have the typical debate whether it's because it's political, right? It's Republicans don't want to take your guns and blah, blah, blah. And so I take it actually sort of one step back and say it's Americans in general. And I've talked about this on the show before. When we were broadcasting tourism programming, so with our syndicated radio shows, 3 times a year, we would take the show on the road and we would broadcast from different destinations. A tourism board would fly us out there, fly me out there, and we would basically be paid to vacation, go around the city or, and see different things, do this, take pictures, interview people. And so we were in Houston, Texas, 5 or 6 years ago. And I know that Texas is a very, as a Canadian, Texas, you think guns, right? So when we were there, I that actually wasn't at the forefront of my mind. Usually because we're sort of kept in a bubble when we would do these tourism things where we're only going to, like the fanciest restaurants. There's even some cities where they will purposely tell the driver like to not go through a certain area because of, it just being a bad neighborhood. They don't want reporters, to see that, right? Because that could end up being broadcast to everybody. And so when we were there, I was not thinking like, oh, okay, I'm in Texas and there's guns everywhere. There's guns all around me. I did not think that at all. I did not feel unsafe though. And so we were at, we stayed at 2 different hotels when we were there. And so when we were staying at the first one, we often we'd get invited to dinners with, the marketing person or the PR person or somebody from the property or, or whatever it is that we're doing. And so in this instance, it was the marketing person from the resort that we were staying at. And, I had dinner with her and it was just the 2 of us. And so she had said to me, we're having the conversation. When you're a Canadian, it's generally brought up like, oh, healthcare and guns. Those are the 2 things that Americans will bring up to me if you're having any sort of length of conversation. And so she said to me, you realize that probably about half the people in this bar or in this lounge, wherever we were, probably have guns on them. And I didn't realize that it would be that many, but at the same time, it's also just unsettling being a Canadian who, like, I personally don't know any Canadians who have a gun. Now, I know one, like our producer Bonnie Winters and her husband live out in the country, and it's a protection thing from animals. Like, it's not a handgun that it's, that they've got strapped to their waistband. No, I don't know any Canadians that have, and I know people all over the country. And so when she said that, instantly I was just like, ooh, whoa, scared. Because I guess in my head I was thinking, this could turn into the OK Corral at any moment, right? We're in a restaurant, people are drinking. All you need is one fight to break out, and suddenly, there's going to be a shootout. And again, I realized that that's not likely to happen, but it could very well, right? I mean, who would think that at a church school, 9-year-old kids would be shot? Right? I mean, it's not something, we know that it could happen. But we're not, you're not going into the mall. I spent a lot of time in West Hollywood, right? That's like my second home because we have an office there. We've got a business there. I don't walk around Los Angeles when I go into a restaurant, when I go into a mall. I'm just not thinking that. Right? Now, if somebody puts it in my head, if somebody says that to me as we're walking in the mall, okay, let's find the exits because there could be a shootout. Well, sure, then I'm going to be fearful of it. So it wasn't until the woman had said that I was just kind of like, oh, wow, like I sort of want to wrap this up quickly and then go and, hide in my room and lock the door is truly how I felt. I'm not being sarcastic. I really was, get me out of this. It was in the bar of the hotel. It's not, we weren't in a nightclub. We weren't in it was a dark, dimly lit, very fancy restaurant, I will say. But that's also what made me think, why would people feel the need to bring a gun here? I mean, this, again, I realize they're allowed to. I'm not saying, but if I felt like I needed to bring a gun to a restaurant, that means that I don't feel safe there. Or like I need that, because, right, it's always about its protection, right? You have the gun to protect yourself. But that's what I'm thinking. Like, if we all have the same mentality, all 40 of us in this restaurant are going to have a gun so that if somebody does shoot at us, we can shoot back. Or if you go into the restaurant and nobody has guns, then you're just as safe then. You don't have to worry about somebody losing their temper and all of a sudden just, pulling a gun. So that's the Canadian mentality. So when I write that newspaper column on the Monday, because this whole thing happened the Monday morning, I write my newspaper column Mondays. It goes into the paper on Wednesday. And all of a sudden, I get tweets from people, I get nasty emails, somebody, and it's usually the insults. Nobody asked for your Canadian bacon opinion, eh? And I'm just like, here we go. And so what my point in that column was, this is American culture, though. It's American culture. It's not about, and in the column I write, like I don't know what an AR is. I don't know even what caliber means, or like all these things, or what the gauge is. These are all like common terms to a lot of Americans. I don't know what a 45 is. I know the words or the phrases. That's all I know, and I don't want to know. But the fact that people know, right? The fact that the mass shooters, the murderers, whatever you want to call them, the killers, it's mental health and this or that, or the ability, they had the laws that they could buy them legally. Well, whether it's legal or not, the bottom line is they got them somehow, right? So there's that debate about, well, if we change the gun laws and make these guns illegal, well, so you're saying that if you go and make something illegal, all of a sudden it's going to go. Marijuana was illegal for how long? And still is in a lot of places. It's still there, right? I mean, you have these debates, right? Of course, especially on cable news, you've got the panels yelling at each other and this and that. It's not this, it's guns, it's this, it's Trump, it's blah, blah, blah. And as a Canadian, I just kind of step back and go, it's the culture, though. Like, if I feel the need to strap a gun to my hip to go into the store, I probably don't want to live there. That's at the end of the day. And if I had to leave my country because that's what it, would take to make me feel safe, then I would do that. But I don't feel. I've been in every big city in Canada. I've not every single freaking neighborhood that is dangerous. But again, I use my judgment, right? I don't feel unsafe in, certain areas. And certainly if I had a gun, I would not feel safer. That wouldn't make, and so I also then give the example, like several years ago, I was at home at night and it was dark outside and I was in a room in the back of my house in my office. And so I only had the light on there. So if you were coming up the front sidewalk and you were at the front door, you actually probably wouldn't have seen, the house probably was pitch black to you when you were coming up the sidewalk. And of course, that's what, predators, intruders, B&E folks look for. It's a completely dark house. But I was in the other corner of the house. And so, our moms always told us, don't have lights on in the house if you're not there. And so that's kind of what it was. And so I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, the doorbells, the front and the back door, were just ringing like crazy. And I'm like, what is that? What's happening? Is there something wrong with the wiring? I don't know. And then all of a sudden, my dogs are barking and going crazy. And then I hear beep, 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 back door, which means my back door's opening. And I was like, that's weird. Like, why? And it's not computing at the time. So what I'm getting at is that even if I did have a gun in my house, in that, it was literally probably about a minute, I have no idea. I'm not thinking, I'm going to go run upstairs and get my gun. I'm going to run to the closet and get my gun. I was trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. So if you're telling me that the instinct, and maybe because I'm not American, I'm not programmed to have that reaction to go get my gun, But I was just like, I don't know even what's going on. And then it wasn't until I went to the back door and I saw a silhouette. They didn't actually get into the house. They had just kicked the door so it moved a little bit, and that's what set off the trigger, the sensor. And then when I went to the back door, and then I see a silhouette run away. So that's only when I knew what happened. I had no idea what was going on. So, as much as people say you don't know how you'd react in the moment if something happens, same thing like if there's a fire. You can have all the escape routes you want, but when you're panicked and everything's happening at, a mile's pace, that plan goes out the window because you just, don't think that. So even if I had a gun, I had 2 big dogs barking. I didn't feel, I didn't feel unsafe at the time because I had no idea that's what was going on. So I don't know that it's, it's this... we have it to protect ourselves, whatever. Well, live in a different neighborhood then. If that's and so that's when I say it's the culture, it's the American culture that you feel I'm allowed to have chickens in my backyard. Doesn't mean that I have chickens in my backyard just because I'm allowed to. And that's also one of those arguments. You're not going to take away my guns. There you go. I mean, that right there, that kind of attitude is not something that Canadians have. And I realize that there are Canadians that have guns. I'm not saying that no Canadians have guns. But, if you were to look up, and if I were to type in, Canadian mass shootings, I think there's really only been 3 or 4 in the past couple of years. I'm not even saying 3 or 4 this year or last year. It's not many. Again, I'm not saying that there's no crime in Canada. There certainly are shootings. So we're talking mass shootings where it's, I guess, by the American definition is 4 people, right? Killed or shot. So... but anyway, it's a tragic story. I also then have to go and say, I'm not blaming the victims here. I'm not saying that the 9-year-old kids deserved it. I'm not saying that at all. It's a terrible story. It absolutely is. But it's one of those things where you can have the debates. You're going to have the arguments now for however long, every time it happens. And again, looking at the gun violence archive or whatever is, when you see that it is actually happening every day, but the fact that it was a school and it was 9-year-old kids, every day, every one of them is a tragedy. It's not, and I've also never understood that we're supposed to feel even sadder because kids were involved. No, a life is a life. Whether it was a 100-year-old or a 2-year-old that was shot and killed, it's still a tragedy. It is still, whether it was 1 person, 6 people, 50-something people, a life is a life, is how I see it. But again, that's just me. So yes, a tragedy all around. It's, a terrible story. I spent time in Nashville when we signed off of the radio, one of our radio shows. Very, very, it's not... I didn't feel unsafe there at all. We were coming off of Corona. I can't say... I didn't feel unsafe in the way that I was going to be physically harmed like that. I was concerned that I might get Corona because nobody was wearing masks. But anyway, so there's my unsolicited Canadian opinion of... It's not even gun control. I said it's just the culture. It's gun culture in the United States. I'd love to hear from you. Call me names, call me an asshole, send me an email live at jbonair.com. Back in a moment on the Scribble right after this.
Listen up, guys. Are you experiencing any of the following? Fatigue, less drive, poor performance? If so, you may be one of the nearly 30 million men in the U.S. today dealing with ED. But did you know you don't have to pay hundreds for a prescription anymore? And you don't have to deal with the hassle of seeing the doctor or the embarrassment of going to the pharmacy for a certain pill. Now with one free call, you can find out how Herbal Virility Max can help you feel like a man again. For over a decade, Herbal Virility Max has helped guys just like you put a smile back on their face with improved performance and drive. Call today and ask about our buy one, get one free offer. Save the money, save the hassles, and get the better blue pill. Dial 800-578-0179. That's 800-578-0179. 800-578-0179.
This statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Are you in bad pain? You know what I mean. Your knees hurt, your shoulder hurts, and your back. Oh my God, your back. They're constantly killing you. And I'm sure you've tried every pain pill or cream available at the drugstore, am I right? Well, here is something you haven't tried. Pain Absolve. Pain Absolve is not available in any drugstore. The only way to get it is by calling today. We're so confident that it will work for you that we offer a free bottle with your purchase. No prescription needed, and best of all, each purchase comes with a money-back guarantee. Call now to find out how you can get Pain Absolve and get rid of your pain. Call 800-319-0582. That's 800-319-0582. 800-319-0582. Call today. 800-319-0582.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on the Scribble. So again, the busy news week that I was talking about. And so elsewhere on Thursday, I said in the morning, was the story that broke about a Wall Street Journal reporter who was arrested in Russia and is facing charges of espionage. Now, I should also point out, this story is still developing, so I'm not going to go into the bit, because by the time you're listening to this, if it's, Saturday, Sunday, it could be different already. But the bottom line is that a reporter who was in Russia was taken in. Now, obviously, the United States is trying to get him back, trying to get him released. Mike Pence was on CNN last night saying Biden should say they've got 24 hours to release him or there's going to be trouble. Now, here's my thing. I am a trained journalist. I took it in school. I wrote very early on when I started my newspaper column, again, 19 and a half years ago, one of the early columns that I wrote was, I don't understand why reporters are going into the war zone if they don't have to. Now, it's one thing to be reporting on something that your country is involved in, right? So this Russia-Ukraine thing, our countries, Canada, the United States, are involved because of lending support, military aid, whatever it is. So in a roundabout way, we're involved. Now, are Canadians in there fighting? No. As far as I know, they're not, because we're not allowed. Isn't it that whole NATO thing, whatever? So that's fine. And if your country's involved in the war, okay, but even still. So every northern or western hemisphere, every country is saying, stay out of Russia right now. Don't be there. And I get it that you're a reporter, you're there for the news. Reporters are sometimes treated a little bit better. Like, I know when we've gone traveling, it's easier for me anyway to get into countries. When Corona was happening and there was the shutdowns, well, as a journalist, I was an essential worker. I was able to travel still. Our producers were not. That wasn't allowed. So the whole thing about, like, it's not new that we're being told to stay out of Russia. So now this is one of those things where people will go and say, you're blaming the victim. This guy got arrested. He's the one he's the victim here. Well, but I gave that example before on the show. Like, if I cross the street not at a sidewalk and I get hit by a car, I mean, everybody's going to see the car as the bad guy because that's the big machine, that's the driver who wasn't paying attention, blah, blah. But I mean, I also stupidly didn't cross at the right spot. And the word victim is thrown around so much these days that you kind of look at it and go, well, okay, so he was a reporter, so that's supposed to give him some sort of immunity from, rules and everything? No. But that's where it's like, you can hire a freelancer. You can hire, it's called a stringer, I believe, right? Somebody local there who could report for your outlet, who report back to you. And then I do know that there are some reporters who like going into those war zones, right? Anderson Cooper, Lisa Ling. I'm just trying to think of some people who I think, who I know have talked about it in the past. And that's, go for it. But then if you're captured or you're taken in or you're whatever, or kidnapped or something, well, but again, on government advice, right? I mean, government intelligence, when we would be doing our travel programming and we went to Panama, we went to China, we would go to Mexico, we would always check the Government of Canada website to see if there were any advisories for the places we were going. There always seems to be advisories for Mexico, not Puerto Vallarta where we were. That's a relatively safe city, but we certainly were consulting with security people and our government and even just locally, and if we were even told stay away from Puerto Vallarta or it's advised not to go there, we sure as hell were not going to be going there then. And so with this, I mean, this Russia thing it's a big, it's bigger than a lot of countries, I think, right now. And why you would still be there And we've been taught that too, or we've been told that too, that if you're going to, wherever, some third world country where there's a war broken out, that we might not be able to assist you. We might not be able to get, we're going to be limited because of what's going on there. Well, I would take that as get the fuck out and not be there. And so, it's bad that this guy was arrested, espionage, right? Like it's potentially becoming political, and is it going to be retribution? What they did with the basketball player and other people that they've had there. But again, that's where it's like, but you're still going there when we're being told not to. So I appreciate that the government is going to work its ass off to get him back, because that's what a government has to do now. But to a certain extent, you almost want to go and say to the Wall Street Journal, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you putting your people in danger like that? Why? We know what the deal is. We know the worst can happen. You could argue that the worst could happen anywhere, right? But, come on now. Come on. So do you blame the victim in that case, right? Is this guy at fault? You could refuse the work and say, I'm sorry, I don't want to go there. But that's the problem, though, is that reporters kind of feel that, I've got to get there. I've got to tell the story. Yeah, but at what cost? Well, he's figuring that out, right? So send me an email live@jbonair.com. One more break talking about Trump right after this.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. We've got, 2 minutes left, so I've got to make this quick about Donald Trump. And again, this is one of those things, you're a Canadian, shut up, who cares about your opinion? But I'm always surprised about how everything always comes back to politics, really. At the end of the day, for Americans, it's always I don't know, right? It's either Democratic or Republican. That's all it's gun control, it's healthcare, it's this, it's that. It's always one party or the. And so, we've heard Trump use his famous term, witch hunt, however many times. And I break it down and go, but he broke the law though, right? Breaking the law is breaking the law. So when it's political, it's the Democrats. But if the laws are drawn out, the laws are there. It's and some of them have been around for hundreds of years. Then he broke the law. I mean, that's at the end of the day, he broke the law. So whether it was a witch hunt that they were just trying to fight, nobody planted something on him. Nobody, he broke the law. I mean, the evidence is the evidence. So that's just sort of my thoughts on it. Where now it is turned into, we heard last night that Trump already was fundraising off this, and we've heard that he wants to be perp walked and whatever. I just go, wow, this is another example of how, everything comes back to politics for Americans. And so there you go. Anyway, we are out of time. But again, my email address, live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com. One hell of a week, and we are wrapping up March. Here we go. Let's see what April brings, right? My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Again, thanks so much for tuning in on your favorite podcast app, subscribing, and always follow me on Twitter if you want. Oh, but very quickly, I also got word that I was verified on Instagram, and I had not been on Instagram for probably about like 2 or 3 weeks since St. Patrick's Day. I posted pictures of my dogs, and all of a sudden I get this notification that I'm verified. So whatever the fuck that means. I will talk to you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some